Christian masterpieces,
political,
business,
self-help books,
and much more. Get ready for a thorough review, a captivating discussion, an insightful author interview. Welcome to the video podcast show, Attorney Sheila R. Stewart's Bookshelf.
Welcome to our brand new show. We are so excited to have an outstanding leader with us today, Dr. LaWanne Grant. She hails all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina. This is our first show debuting with this outstanding guest, attorney Sheila R. Stewart's Bookshelf. Here we will discuss some of the most outstanding literary pieces. We'll highlight authors. We'll talk about the latest articles, books, even Supreme Court decisions. Anything that's dealing with outstanding writing, we will highlight it on this show. Christian masterpieces. We welcome you to email us at law@sheilastewart.com so you can submit your literary work, and we will be glad to bring you on as our special guest. This first show is dedicated to an outstanding leader in honor of March, Women's History Month. We dedicate this show to the one and only Dr. Barbara McCool Lewis for the outstanding work that she has done and is currently doing across the United States of America. She's an author and a leader in her own right. We dedicate this show to her. Welcome, Dr. Grant. How are you today?
I am good, Attorney Stuart. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is an honor. It is an honor and a pleasure and a delight to have you with us. And before we go into this great book that you have written, this book has just encouraged me. It has motivated me. And I know our listeners and viewers want to hear you talk about this book, not me. So we're going to turn this over to you. But before we turn the mic over to Dr. Grant, we want you to know just a little bit about her, the great work that she has done and is currently doing throughout the United States of America. Dr. Grant is an entrepreneur in her own right. She has created companies and different types of programs to assist individuals to become successful. Dr. Grant earned her BS in criminal justice from Grambling State University. She graduated summa cum laude and is salutatorian of her class. She advanced to obtain an MS in Administration of Criminal Justice from California State University in Sacramento, and a Master's of Arts in Theology and Biblical Studies from Fuller Theological Seminary. She earned a PhD in Business and Organizational Leadership confirmed by Regent University. That is just amazing. And she is using this type of education and studies to really help move individuals forward. She has also served as a visiting professor teaching leadership, organizational behavior, comparative religions, and philosophy classes, coupled with involvement in various outreach efforts, community programs, and professional organization. She is also the First Lady of Kingdom Builders Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, where the one and only Bishop Grant is the bishop and the pastor of that ministry. That ministry is a trailblazer in Charlotte, North Carolina. They are doing great things there, and they are impacting the kingdom, the city, and the community. Welcome, Dr. Grant.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What a warm welcome. And who is that you're talking about? Oh my goodness.
Talking about you, my dear. Talking about you. I want you to share and highlight the power of this book.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have started with a more motivational, impactful book to get people to the next level of their destiny.
Wow.
One of the chapters that really inspired me was Commanding Your Day.
Oh,
Commanding your day. And that you have the power to direct the beginning of your day throughout the day by the words you speak. Can you just tell our listeners about that chapter?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get there, I think it's very important for everyone to know even the genesis of the book, right?
Sure.
Because as you said, like you're motivated. The name of the book is actually Leadership Recharge. A lot of people mistakenly say E-Charge because that R, right, goes for leadership and recharge. But you know, Sheila, I get to travel a lot to do leadership seminars and workshops. And I was leaving Cleveland, Ohio, one time about a year and a half ago or so. And, you know, I always consult God. I'm a woman of faith. So I always consult God, like, what am I supposed to talk about? And then when it's over, I'm like, okay, God, how did your girl do? Right. And so I'm sitting at the airport and I'm just reflecting on what happened in the room. And I was looking at my phone, some photos that I had taken, and I never really take like a selfie, but I had taken one of myself in that hotel, right? I was waiting for my ride. They were a little late. But in that photo, I saw like this socket, my iPhone charger, right? My phone wasn't connected, but the socket or the charger was still in the socket. And at that time, as I was looking for affirmation from God about what I had done in that moment, that thing just like really stuck out to me. And the Holy Spirit was like, don't forget that as you pour, you also need to be recharged as well. So don't just come when you're low, when your fuel tank is low, but every moment you want to be intentional about reconnecting and about recharging so that you can pour out. So I just began to write several areas where I personally wanted to always be recharged, right? And so now you have the book, which I'm super excited because several groups are studying it, but there are 30 things in the book. I had to narrow that down, but there's 30 things in the book. And as you stated, one is command, right? And so I noticed that in the areas and spaces that I'm blessed to lead, what I say before I go into that moment, what I say before I go into that day, it really has a lot of weight on my outcomes. So I can have lofty ideas. I can have a great plan, a great strategy. But if I don't look at that plan and say, this is going to be amazing, I will have the people that I need to execute, I will have the resources that I need to fund the project. I could go in knowing that I need $20,000, but I'm walking into the bank with a level of intimidation and trepidation, not knowing if it's gonna happen or not. But if I say to myself, when you walk into this bank, there's going to be so much favor that surrounds you. People are going to say, what can I do to help you accomplish your goals? You know, and it may not play out just like that, but when you speak it, it may not be the person that you expected, but somehow, some way, you are calling forth the things that's assigned to your vision. Because here's what I know, that everything that you are inspired to do as a leader, it doesn't belong to you and it has nothing to do with you. And so everything that's inspired internally, I personally rely on God for that to be executed in a more excellent way. So just because one person tells me no in the bank, I don't get sad. I don't get discouraged. I get back in the car because maybe it wasn't the Wells Fargo on Harris Boulevard I was supposed to be at. Maybe I was supposed to go down the street to Broadway because that's Wells Fargo where they're going to say yes, right? And so you have to learn how to command your day. So I talk about that. And specifically, there's this little part in the book that says self-management. We talk about self-management. It's a strategy used for self-mastery. So if you can master yourself, then you can master your day. Okay. So when you look into the mirror and you say, oh, I'm fat or I look old. Okay, well, you may have a couple pounds that don't belong to you, right? But if you look in the mirror and say, you know what? I look good while I'm working on my weight loss. That's a different narrative, right? And so if somebody calls you fat in a derogatory way, then you've already told yourself at the beginning of the day, hey, I recognize where I am, but you know what? I feel so good because I'm working on my weight loss. So we have to learn how to speak those things in the atmosphere that we want to happen for ourselves and for others.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And you have to do that in order to just get a mental picture of how you see yourself in a more positive light.
Absolutely.
It gives you that. Let's talk about another chapter I would love for you to highlight.
Okay.
Let's discuss the chapter of position.
Okay.
That is really key. And I love this chapter in particular. It starts on page 93. This chapter in particular talks about how sometimes we desire to be in spaces that's not the will of God for us to be in. And that we have to learn how to be successful and effective in the place that is his will for us. Can you share some information, more information on that chapter for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Immediately what jumps out to me on page 93 is this statement: just because you want it doesn't mean you should have it. And often we're going after positions because we see the benefits of that position. And I would venture to say the perceived benefits of that position, because when you don't have the grace for the position that you're going after, and then you get there, you realize, you know what, this is really not for me. That person made it look super easy, but that's because they had the grace for that position, because that's where they were supposed to be. They were supposed to be. So I talk about making sure that you are in the right position for the right time. I also encourage the reader to never belittle where you are right now, because yes, you may have great aspirations for greater platforms of leadership, but trust me, where you are right now is teaching you a lesson, if not several lessons, that you're going to need on the next level. So if you are always, you are constantly focused on the next level, the next thing, I want it bigger, I want it better, you're going to miss the small lessons. Oh my goodness. You're going to miss the small lessons that you're going to need. Learn how to temper your tongue wherever you are. Learn how to manage your emotions wherever you are. Learn how not to send an email immediately. Learn how to type it up. Read it for a day or two before you fire off something, because you can't take those words back, right? So there are some behaviors, there are some characteristics that when you are in a position that you may not even want to be in right now, that there are lessons that God is trying to put in your hand so that you could be successful for the next level. So Sheila, in each chapter, I give action items, and it's called the challenge. So for this particular chapter that you're speaking about, there are 4 actions, and I want to share with your audience because I trust that you will apply this, right? So number 1, consider the position you're in or the position you desire. Number 2, ask God if the position you identify is his will for you at this time. Number 3, please don't move or act until you receive instructions from God, not from your group, not from outside influences, but did God tell you that this is where he wants you in this season, in this hour? And then number 4, accept God's response, even if it's not what you desire. Because the hardest part, Sheila, is when God says no to something you want. And then another challenge is when God says, I want you right here, but you don't want to be there. So you have to stop and pause and say, okay, is this where God wants me to be? I know personally, I've been in places. As a matter of fact, I'll just be honest. I'm leading in some areas where I'm like, I don't even want to be here. Like this was not on my radar. This was not on my list, right? But for some reason, God has me here. And so I have to step back. And again, another moment of transparency. When I did that and I put me out of the way and I said, okay, God, I didn't even ask for this. You know, I didn't plan for this. You have strategically placed me here and it's for a reason. So show me, what am I supposed to do while I am leading in this space? And when you do that, you'll be more successful in the positions that you have. It's not in this book, I don't think, but I say it all the time, Sheila, is that when your desire is to be in the will of God, you will always be in position to give him glory. A lot of times we're after the position and we omit the will. Oh my goodness. That's and when you go after the position, you may have all of the lofty things that you were going after, but you're out of the will of God and it's going to be temporary. And what I know about God is that when you're in his will, he will strategically put you in position, and the benefits of being in the positions and occupying the space where God wants you to be, there are enduring benefits to that. It's longevity. It's not stressful because God gives you this grace to do what he wants you to do.
That's good. That's really, really, really good. And why do you think today that we are seeing a generation of people that are so prone after positions instead of after the heart of God or after an opportunity to raise up the community? I want to help the community versus I want to be in a position that I'm over the community. Why do you think we see so much of that today?
Yeah, I think it is the cinematic presentation that you see on television, that you see on social media, and our younger generation, specifically, you know, when I say younger, millennials, Gen Zers, the alphas who are coming, all we know is technology, right? So even leadership has been filtered to these three generations through technology, right? Versus some older generations, Generation X, baby boomers, leadership was studied, if you will. You know, to get close to leaders, you had to do volunteer work. You had to read about them. You had to get involved, right? And that's how we learned what leadership was all about, what leadership really looked like. But unfortunately now, leadership looks glamorous, and there's some good things about leadership, but there's also some pitfalls that you want to be aware of. But social media will tell us that, hey, when you have this, you got it made, right? But we have to be very mindful that that is what we call controlled content. You know, media on any level is only showing, it's only telling what it wants you to know. And so a lot of times we're looking at it and say, oh yeah, we want that because of X, Y, and Z, instead of stepping back and saying, you know what? What's the core of the mission? Because when you fall in love with the core of the mission, no matter what comes, no matter what goes, you'll stay committed to that. And here's another thing. This is why, personal opinion, okay, I've only been doing this maybe for about 3 decades now. But anyway, my personal opinion is that when you're not committed, you'll jump ship very quickly. But when you are a leader who is committed to the mission, to the cause, that you want to stay there to see what you saw initially, it may take 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but you're not going to jump ship when you encounter hardship. You're going to stay on the boat. You're going to do what it takes to make sure that the vision remains afloat. And when you do that, you're able to really, really sit in the moment of success. You know, it's not about you. It's all about God. But when you stay on the ship, you can sail. But what we have is a lot of people jumping overboard. Then they swim to another ship. They get on board. That's not working out. That's not going to the destination I want to go to. So I'm going to get up, swim again. And then they'll look at the boat that they were initially on and say, hey, I want to get back, right? Because they see that you're almost ashore. They see that you're almost to the place that you talked about when you debarked from that particular shore. So you want to make sure that you stay on board. Don't just keep jumping ship to ship to ship to ship. Stay committed to the vision. Stay committed to the cause, and you'll be more effective.
Excellent, excellent. I love it. I love it. I love it. And now this brings me to the next chapter, which is key. We got to talk about this chapter. Burn out.
Whoa. Okay.
Burn out. We need information on how to stay recharged and not burn out. Now, I know, Dr. Grant, I deal with burnout.
Yeah.
You know, people call all the time. I mean, being an attorney is almost like being a psychiatrist. I never thought of this field being so in line with mental health, you know?
Yeah.
It is. And the burnout of it, of what you get. Can you give us some nuggets from the chapter on burnout and how leaders need to recharge?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So that's also one of my favorite chapters as well, because let's be honest, that's the side of leadership that you don't see on social media. And every leader experiences burnout more often than you think. So for whether you are a person of the Christian faith or not, scripture can still help you. Okay. And Luke 5:16, I love it because it says, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Oh my goodness. And when you read that, you will find the context is that he had just completed performing ministry, if you will. He was executing a lot of miracles. People were coming after him, rightfully so, right? Because he had this gift. That's what people do to you, right? You're anointed for something. You're anointed in the area of law that you do, right, Sheila? So people they pull on what you have. Oh my goodness. And so you have to be very, very intentional on taking the time for you. I discussed that you have to schedule yourself, because if you don't schedule yourself, if you don't develop your calendar, other people will. But when they call and you say, you know what, not today, I'm sorry, I have to do this. Trust me, they're going to figure out how to get it done. And then you prevent yourself from being stressed out and burnt out. Okay. There are 3 particular things that I want to share. Number one is what I call my honey baked ham theory. And the reason I call it that is because I was in line one Thanksgiving holiday because I was late. I forgot to order my ham. So I said, okay, let me go down and let me order my ham, right? So I happened to be behind this gentleman, and we began to talk. And he was an executive pastor at a very large church here in Charlotte. And so I just asked him, I said, what do you do to prevent yourself from burning out? He said, I decide, delegate, and disappear. And so those 3 words, I developed a whole process to that, right? Because I got in the car, I was like, oh, wow, like that's really good. So to prevent burnout and still remain active, right? I'm gonna talk about vacation in a minute, but to remain active while you're in it, ask yourself, who can I give this to? I'm deciding on the plan. I'm sorry. Number one, you decide on the plan, right? So you have the strategy as the leader. So you decide exactly what needs to be done. But when you decide what needs to be done, Then you have to decide who can do it, because just because you have the ability to do it doesn't mean you have the responsibility to do it. And a lot of times we burn ourselves out because we're saying, oh, I'll just do it. Or here's another one. Oh, they'll do it, but it's not going to look like mine. It's okay. Is it done? Did you save you some time? Did it save you some stress? Right? And so it may not be formatted just like how you would, but take the time to delegate and teach them how it should be. So you decide, delegate, and then here is the most important step to me. That is to intentionally disappear, which means that I'm not going to micromanage. I am going to oversee, but I'm going to disappear, and I'm going to trust the team to produce what I have trained you to do, right? And so in your disappearing act in the book, I also encourage leaders to vacate, not just vacation. Because when you add TION, that is an implication of action. And often we go away on vacation and we come back extremely tired, extremely exhausted. Why? Because every day of your vacation, you had an excursion plan. I mean, you were doing this, you were doing that, right? And you don't understand that it's still taking some mental energy from you. Instead of taking some days where you're saying, you know what, for 2 days, I'm doing absolutely nothing. If I want to get out the bed, I will. If I want to order room service, then that's what I'm going to do. If I want to just take a walk, that's what I'm going to do. But allow yourself to vacate. And while you're on vacation, vacate, okay, it also means those electronic gadgets. So I really encourage leaders. It says that sentence just jumped out at me. Here it is. It says, when you vacate, it may require that you momentarily divorce your laptop and your cell phone. Trust me, those emails can wait. I promise you they're going to be there when you get done with your 5 days of restoration for yourself, okay? When Jesus withdrew to lonely places, it was a sign that he was temporarily off limits. Got to be okay. We're putting a sign up to say, I'm off limits. You must enforce boundaries so that your connection with God goes uninterrupted. This is the only method that allows you to avoid burnout while gaining the strength needed to complete your assignments. So burnout is real. And it's not in this book, but it's in another of my books called Motivation All in One. And I want to share with you guys, if you're listening, please grab a pen and paper, write this down. It's in my book, and I have a chapter on burnout in that one as well, a different spin to it. But in that book, I talk about Dr. Guy Brewer's 4 steps to burnout, because burnout doesn't just happen. There's a process. So number 1 is blackout, right? So that happens when you're forgetting your first love. So you're forgetting why you even showed up in the first place. You know, it's kind of like you, Sheila, like you love law, right? That's why you went to law school. But now, because you're feeling burnt out, it's separating you from the love of law, right? For me, I love pouring into people. I love teaching. I love making sure that people understand the tenets of leadership. But when I do it without vacating, without taking some time away, then I become a little fatigued, and I become removed from my first love. So you have to be able to recognize that. That's blackout. Number 2 is brown out. Okay. Brownout happens when there is chronic weariness from self-effort. In other words, you're tired because you're doing everything yourself. That's self-effort instead of delegating, like we talked about. Decide, delegate, and disappear, right? So the art to delegation, I tell people all the time, the art to delegation is looking at everything that you need to do today and then saying, who can do that for me? And giving it to that person. And me personally, I try to have as less things on my things to do list, but they're still getting done, right? So you have to be very, very careful of brownout. So you got blackout, you have brownout. Here's a third one, is dropout. That's a sense of apathy or withdrawal. So you may still be showing up, but emotionally, you're withdrawn from that. Like it's and I've been there. Okay. I've been like in meetings, and I'm like, Can they please hurry up? Okay, yeah, whatever you all decide, I'm on with it, right? It's you're emotionally withdrawn from it. And so you have to be in tune with yourself to know where you are. And when you're in that stage, you have dropped out. You're still functioning, but you have dropped out. So you got blackout, brownout, dropout. Here's the last one, and that is burnout. That's when you hit burnout, right? But burnout speaks to spiritual death.
Mm-hmm.
About that. So burnout is really not, oh, I'm tired. Burnout is, I want to go somewhere and just be buried because I want all of this to go away. That's a dangerous place to be in. And you could prevent yourself from being in that stage if you're able to recognize the blackout, the brownout, recognize those other stages. And when you're in those spots, be intentional to vacate, to go away for some me time and reconnect with your purpose, reconnect with your calling so you can come back and show up and be greater. That's what Jesus did. That's
exactly what he did. And he was greater. And this is his will for us to do greater works.
Yeah.
Can you share, before we're almost out of time? I can't believe we are, but I want you, I highlighted some of the chapters that were very impactful for me. Can you share with us what area of this, the whole book we need to focus on, obviously, but can you give us the chapter you want us to look at as a takeaway?
Yeah, the big one for me is bias. That's recharge number 3. Okay. I talk about bias because so many times we can go into engaging our team members with what, excuse me, with what someone told us, right, about that person. We can even go into a system where someone will say, oh, it'll never happen. Those people don't want change. That organization will never change. But perhaps you are the change agent for that moment. So I talk about bias, and I talk about not embracing people based on what you've heard. Now you can keep it in your back pocket, okay? Mm-hmm. But to engage people and learn who they are, because here's what I know from experience is that I have had greater success with people who were coined as, you can't work with her. She's mean, she's nasty, but there's an approach that you have to have, right? Mm-hmm. And so perhaps you are the one to affect that change. And so I just talk about bias and not going in. The 4 challenges that I give in that chapter is this. Number 1, identify your personal bias, right? So this is everything across the board, from age, gender, religion. Like, what are your personal biases? I have to know, what are my personal guards? What do I think about this person, before I even engage? And I have to be very clear, because those biases can sometimes prevent me from developing the relationship that's an open door for what I need to do and for what they need to do. So how do I feel about men? How do I feel about Hispanics? How do I feel about Caucasian people? When I go in, right? I don't want any of those biases to prevent me from developing authentic relationships. So the first thing is to identify your personal bias. Number 2, list what others have told you that could influence your thoughts. In research, we call this the outliers, right? Mm-hmm. So what are those things that's the outlining thing that could possibly influence what you think and how you engage with this person? Again, now I'm not saying being stupid. If somebody told you that this person is a crook and they steal money, keep that in the back of keep that in your back pocket. Okay. Right. You don't want to immediately put them over the finances. But for me, I'm going to trust you with $10, and I'm going to see how you deal with $10 before I give you 100, before I give you 1,000. Right. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that you have accountability measures for that person, but list everything that people have said. And those are the things that you want to be aware of before you're going into the situation. And then number 3, don't allow influence biases to absolutely define the next moment or encounter. All right. Again, that's those outliers, influence biases. And here's number 4, build relationships. That's so big in leadership. Build relationships and discover who people are, listen to this, at their core. Because they may be mean. That may be true about them. But I promise you, it's a reason why they're nasty. And if you would just take the time to understand and listen to that person's story, your relationship will go further, and you'll discover that they'll be your number 1 supporter on your team when you understand the core of who somebody is, instead of allowing biases to just give you this perception of who you think they are. So that's my favorite chapter. It frees me in my mind. It frees me in my approach. It just frees me from any negativity, and I allow people to show me who they are for themselves.
That is beautiful. That is just wonderful. I have enjoyed you immensely. You have been your energy has been awesome, and your grasp of the material, you wrote it, but you're just able to even elaborate on it even more thoroughly and give us the information that we need to help us to ascend to the place where God would have us to go. We thank you for being with us. You are a blessing. We appreciate you so. You have been listening to Attorney Sheila R. Stewart's Bookshelf. Please continue to follow us for more guests. This is just the beginning of many. We have many surprises. Some of the greatest authors that you're going to see them right here on my platform. Thank you, Dr. Grant, for being with us on today. You have been awesome, and we'll see you soon. God bless you. Thank you so much.